Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's CAEP office hour with Neil Kelly from the California Adult Education Program office. My name is Holly Clark, and I'm with the CAEP TAP, I'm so sorry, Technical Assistance Project. I want to make sure everyone can hear me, so if I can have one or two of you chat in the chat box that you can hear me, that'd be great. Okay, looks like we're good. If anyone can't post here, and we will take care of that. So I'll go over some really quick housekeeping items before we get underway. Everyone is muted upon entering the meeting. If at any time during the webinar you wish to talk, you can unmute yourself. This office hour is being recorded and will be available on the website for any colleagues who are unable to attend, or if you would just like to reference the information again. The chat can be used to ask questions or to communicate with one another. If there are resources posted in the chat that you'd like to save, you can simply click on the three dots at the right of the chat box and it'll save a copy of that for you. We will be taking attendance. If you joined with your name, you're fine. If you are using initials or a site name though, we would ask that you please post your name in the chat for us. It makes taking attendance much easier. So with that, I will turn it over to Neil for today's office hour. Neil?
Great, thanks, Holly. All right, smaller group today, but very, very hardworking people here, right? Summer months, you guys are still at it. Okay, so let's look at the agenda, Holly, and see what we're going to talk about today. All right, so let's get right into it on the budget. The Assembly and Senate sent a budget to the governor. I guess it was yesterday or today. And so it does include the full funding of adult ed to prior year. So I'm just going to look at my cheat sheet here on what was the prior year amount, because you'll see a figure if you get into the weeds on the budget. You'll see a figure that'll be 543 million, I think it is 564,000. So that is the 1920 CAEP award amount plus the 5 million for data and accountability. So if you take the 5 million off, then you get the amount that we awarded last year, 538,564,000. So that would be roughly, and let me do a quick calculation. If we're talking increase to the current budget, it would be a $54,356,000 increase to what we currently have on the table. So I'm not sure how, I was trying to find out, okay, so if the Senate Assembly is send a budget to the governor and it included our increase, can the governor only like pencil it out, or can he reduce it, or can he put a trailer bill in? So I guess as they negotiate, I'm just wondering, I'm hoping we're in a better position because we got the money put back in. But if the governor wanted to do something, so I'll see if anybody had any comments on that, if they knew more than I did on, with this money put back in at the 1920 level, what negotiation can the governor go to, or can he do anything? Can he, what they call blue pencil? I don't know if he can reduce it. So I'm curious to that. I don't know if anybody's on the call has more information, and I'm looking at the chat. Kelly says, so that means no COLA, right? So it would just go back to prior year levels, which Kristen's comment, it would be the 1920 level, which is the 538 million number. Hey, not bad, right? Okay, so Peggy says, also, Neil, do you know if there are add backs to K-12 as well? So I'm not sure. So this is for CAEP. That includes K-12 adult, county offices, and colleges. So Peggy, I'm not sure I understand You mean for the K-12 um, budget? Oh, for K-12 secondary. I I don't know. I'm not too familiar with what was added back in. I think it was, but I don't want to speculate. I haven't been really tracking that. I don't know if anybody else knows that can share that with Peggy. Um, so that's kind of where we're at. Shannon says, will we know officially on Monday, and then we'll need to do another allocation amendment? Well, for those of you who don't remember, in the old days, these budget negotiations could go on for a long time. In the old days, before they had the statutory requirement, we would be into August dealing with this. But I think we fixed that, and for I don't know, last X number of years, we've always had an on-time budget. So that on-time budget is July 1. That's signed and chaptered usually. So usually they have a budget maybe the week before or the week of. So I don't think Shannon will know right away. And it just depends on how the negotiations go. So they got what do they call them? Big four, Senate and Assembly, I guess two from each. And then they meet with the governor and they try to negotiate. And if they work something out, they'll let us know as soon as possible, but it could drag on a little longer. But at least we got our 54 million back to 1920 levels, which is great. We didn't get our COLA, so we'll see how that fares in the negotiation. I think Adult Ed has been very vocal in the hearings and in the messaging, so hopefully that will count for something in these negotiations, crossing our fingers. So we'll see what happens. Let me see if I missed anything in the chat. So Mitch said, did you say the revised budget came from both the Assembly and the Senate? Yeah, so the budget, the legislative budget was submitted to the governor, and it had our money back in there. The 54 million that gets us up to the 1920 level funding. So Karen says, it is the plan to have an August revise. Well, I haven't heard what the details are. So what would happen, I'm just doing a scenario, if the budget gets signed and we get that money put back in and we're at the 1920 level. So then we would do an allocation amendment in NOVA to put some more money back in. You'd have to go back to your public meetings or your consortia, have that meeting, decide how that's split out. I'm sure there would be we'd cite that ed code. It's a proportionate share. You get the same percentage as the increase unless cause, 84914 ABC. And then you would put that in NOVA, certify that, and then we'd go through the same process. We'd have to look at the details, Karen, to see if they're, based on the tax revenues coming in, if there's a trigger or not. I haven't heard the details, so we'll see. And Nancy says the legislature does not get paid if it's not completed on time. So that's a good incentive, right? Yulene says, oh, she's just checking in. And Nancy says legislature will be working all weekends since they want to get paid. Okay, great. Yeah, what an incentive, right? I don't know why the state, some of us work weekends, and we're getting paid, but I guess the incentive is more for the students, right? Okay, so moving on to the next item on the agenda. Let me increase my screen here. So reporting reminders. So I'm going to go to my TOPS Pro report. I have some good news. I just have to find it. We've shown some increases in our student data. And we're really excited about that. So let me pull this report up that we're going to put in the newsletter. We're going to share some of the data. So what CASAS has been tracking is the student data, and it's only as good as what you're reporting. But what we're seeing is, let me get a better email here, better chart. seeing an increase from what was reported in April 14th of this year to what was reported June 8th of this year in TopsPro. So we're seeing, last time we looked at from March 24th to April 14th, and we saw like about a 3% increase. And we said, oh, well, we're a little skeptical about that. That could be just people, tidying up their reporting. But so we checked again. So from April 14th to June 8th, we're seeing a 4.4% increase in enrollment. So, we keep going up. We're as Costas and TopsPro are tracking the number of distance learning classes, we see that there's 3,478 new distance learning classes out there. So that's encouraging as well. As we pivot to online learning, we see a lot of adult ed agencies pivoting as well and enrolling a lot of students in online classes. And our enrollment is staying pretty stable, or in fact increasing. We'll see what happens in the fall, but at least it shows we're surviving through the pandemic. We're surviving through all these changes. So that's encouraging. I'll see if there's, let's see, there was a question down here. When do you think you'll get the official memo from CAEP about the revised allocation next week? So right now, TAP has the CFAD memo. So if you have certified that in NOVA, you can contact TAP. We've had a few people do that, just a handful, and you can request the memo from CAEP stating that, yes, we received your CFAD revisions and they are approved, and then it lists the restricted funds, it lists, following the adult ed plan, it lists the life of the funds when they expire, a lot of good information. So if you do have certification in NOVA of the revised CFAD, or what technically is an approved allocation amendment that all your members went in and approved, contact TAP and they will send out that memo with showing that it's been approved, and then all the good information that you can share with your fiscal, because this is back to your fiscal person, and it shows all the restricted requirements. It's restricted funds. It has to be, on the adult ed plan. If you don't spend it, you can be reduced. Here's the time frame. It's not a grant. All that stuff is in there. So that will be helpful. When you do get that memo, you can share with your fiscal person so they're aware that we're not flexed, we're not categorical, we're, so far we haven't been touched by any legislation that changed the nature of our funds. So I hope, Kristen, I answered your question on that. Other reporting reminders, so let's see, we have Q3 is coming up for NOVA for expense reporting. So that's critical because, we have been getting questions on carryover. So we always go to NOVA and we check how much members and consortia are carrying over. And so we always like to check on that. So please keep your Q3 current and get that in. So those were due at the beginning of the month. They're supposed to be certified by the consortia by the end of the month. And that's all really we have until June, nothing in July. And then come August, if you're using TopsPro, if you're a K-12 or county office, that information, your end of the year information is due August 1st. And then I'll talk a little bit about annual plan that's due August 15th, a little bit later in the agenda. And then of course, September, a lot of things are due. We have Q4 from the members. We have the program area estimates for 1920. We have the Q4 is certified at the end of September, and then the member budget and work plan are due in Nova at the end of September. So September starts ramping up. I'll pause there to see if anybody had any questions about this. Okay, so no questions. Moving forward on CAEP disbursement. So after last week's conversation, we have had a lot of dialogue at the state level. And so we're continuing that dialogue. We're hoping that the process will be sped up. And so I think Department of Finance is involved, CDE is involved, Chancellor's Office is involved, CCAE is involved. They're all working hard to make sure you get your funding on time. So no decisions have been made yet, but we are working through, all the trade-offs that I talked about, and we'll see what we can come up with. But it's very encouraging that all these conversations are taking place, and they're serious conversations. So hopefully I'll be able to share soon what decisions would be made and kind of project out what the timeline is on when you're going to receive your funding. Because I know some people, because of the budget situation, will not be able to get a loan from their districts, and they won't be able to pay teachers, and if the funds come late. And I know certain consortiums got together and voiced their concern, and so we're well aware of that as well. So all this is pushing this forward into the forefront of the discussion, and hopefully we'll have decisions made soon. I can't really tell you any news other than that, which that's good news, because if people are talking and it's at the right level, then something's going to happen, and we'll resolve this quickly because we have certain deadlines. Any questions about that? Okay, and Jody says, thanks, Carolyn, for the WIOA RFA result notification. So Carolyn, did you want to talk a little bit about that? If Carolyn's available.
I'm unmuting myself, sorry.
Okay.
So, yes, notifications went out yesterday to all agencies. We're still waiting for it to post on the website. But once it was signed by the deputy, I know everyone was waiting. So I just sent out emails yesterday to everyone who will be awarded a WIOA grant, and then letters went to those that will not be, so that they, if they wish to appeal, can begin the appeal process.
Great, thank you. And then I see that, oh, so Carolyn, sorry.
No, the results are not pending for 243. If you applied for 243 and you were told that you've been approved, then that means you've been approved for 243 as well. Separate emails went out to those agencies that were approved for 231, but not for 243.
Okay. All right, and Connie says it was a wonderful end of the day email. Thank you. So good news. And then Kelly says, what about 225?
Same thing about 225.
Okay. All right. Let's see if anybody has any additional questions for Carolyn. Before we talk about planning, I see that Jay Wright was on the call. Jay, do you have any updates as far as how things are going with kind of the online work that we're doing? Any words of wisdom to share since we have a lot of administrators on the call? I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
In terms of data, or you mean online in terms of instruction, or?
Maybe the pre and post, maybe the pilots and how that's working, and anything you want to give people a heads up on, or what's coming up, or.
Well, I've been talking a lot about, there is a new federal memo that came out at the end of May that addresses placement. The previous two before that did not address placement. It doesn't really answer all the questions, I gotta say. but it does blatantly say it's okay to self-report a person into a level just to get them placed on the NRS tables and qualified. It also kind of goes out of their way to say you need the valid pre and post to actually make an MSG, but there is a way where you can now place a student based on informal assessment, you know, previous test history, etc. If you're just thinking, hey, I need to get them into ESL intermediate or ESL beginning, which one, you can use things other than an appraisal and a pretest to get them on a level. I'll just reiterate, I confuse people when I say this because everybody immediately thinks they can make a pre-post gain without a pre-test and a post-test. So to be exceedingly clear, that's not what it says. You still need the pre-post for an MSG, but they have been loosening it up on placement. On remote testing, we're working on things to try to hopefully serve more people. Obviously, you know, I'll just be honest, you know, I think a lot of people are doing pretty well with the technology of remote testing. I mean, some may differ, but by and large, the technology issues have been really good. But as is, you know, you can only test a small number of students at once. You can do up to 5. That's not very many. Most people say it's a lot better if you just limit it to 1 or 2. So I would say that's the conundrum, is figuring out a way to get this to where it can reach more individuals.
All right.
If that helps. I don't know. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's you or anybody wanted to hear, but
I wanted to hear it, Jay. So at least
well, thank goodness for that. I feel
Hi,
better already.
Neil, can I add in that
Sure.
both HiSET and GED are doing online testing. HiSET is doing testing at home, and GED just started something similar. And so if you are, depending on which HSE you choose to use, I hope that you've been able to participate in those different webinars that they've been having so that you can be up to speed on how that's all working for your students that are ready to test.
Yeah, I just was reminded about the adult school that asked permission to pave their parking lot. So maybe this will come in handy with Diana's suggestion of doing parking lot tests. And now you have a nice smooth parking lot. You can, you know, maybe put some of your students out there and get more room. I don't know if anybody's getting creative with their testing, Jay, if there's, you know, ways to get more space, you know, between students and test more. I don't know if you've heard anything, but
Well, I've been in a lot of discussions. I've got to say, have TMI, but I've had 5 network meetings this week, so I've been talking about it a lot this week. But I've got to say that parking lot testing has come up at every meeting. You hear about it a lot, but when you ask people if they're doing it, nobody ever owns up to it. I thought I had a couple agencies this morning where other people at other meetings were saying, yeah, I learned all this great stuff from this agency, but they were there and I asked them and, you know, no, that's not really us. The other thing I found is that a couple agencies that I really thought were doing this successfully came back and said, no, they're only doing it with, you know, 1 or 2 students, and they're doing it with high school diploma testing, not with CASAS testing.
okay.
So I'm still kind of in search of, if any of you are doing it successfully, I'd love to hear it, but I've gotten lots of, so I won't say lots, but several false reports of agencies doing that. And whenever I follow up, nobody, you know, nobody really owns up to it, so to speak.
Okay.
Neil, let me answer a couple of questions. One is, what do they mean by testing at home for HiSET? That means that the student is doing an online proctored exam from the comfort of their home. And it's exactly what it means. And they have lots of requirements that go along with how that looks. And it should be, it should be really interesting, I think, how that's all going to work. They did a webinar. You probably could look on their website. I believe they recorded it, and they went through all of the steps and all of the requirements. To answer Martha's question, if you got a letter that said congratulations, that means that anything you applied for, that you will be awarded in those sections.
All right. Okay, so someone shared with me, just getting back to the governor's signature, this is great information. Typically, I'll just read it really quick. Typically, the governor has 12 working days to sign the budget bill. So if he got it like today or yesterday, then 12 days from now, he must sign it. The governor also has the authority to blue pencil or reduce or eliminate any appropriation contained in the budget. So if that concerns you, it's critical that you contact the governor either by letter or phone or email to express your concerns about the budget. Because the budget bill is an urgency measure, it goes into effect as soon as it's signed. Veto or override, the legislature can override any blue pencil item by a 2/3 vote in both Assembly and Senate. In practice, the legislature rarely overrides a budget veto. So just FYI on that, thank you for sending that to me. Let's see, there was some information shared by Diana and Burr about the remote testing, interesting stuff. And let's see, okay. So we're kind of caught up. I wanted to talk a little bit about planning. So next Friday, we're gonna have a annual planning webinar. Just a heads up, what you're going to see is the state's going to ask for, not only your annual plan, but maybe in the executive summary to highlight how you're dealing with the COVID-19 situation, depending on the budget situation. If we do get cut, how are you dealing with budget cuts? And then maybe it's still in the process, but if you are impacted by civil unrest, how are you dealing with that, or how are you looking at issues like structural racism in your programs? Are you looking at your data and stuff like that? So we'll have that out soon. It's kind of in clearance, but the webinar will kind of go over how to put that into Nova and certify that, and what's the process for that. So that'll be next Friday. I forget I think it's at 1 o'clock. So any questions about the planning? Okay, we have another WIOA 2 question. I'll let Carolyn respond to that. And let's see if anybody else has any additional questions. And we have the summer schedule update, we have the summit update, but that's kind of stuff I wanted to
So
see.
I can, you want me to answer
Carolyn.
really fast, Neil?
Sure.
So if you received an email that was saying congratulations, it means congratulations that your grant application for whatever sections you applied for, you've been approved. If you applied for 231 and 243 and your 243 was not approved, then you received an email with a letter attached to that. If you weren't approved for 231, you received an email with a letter attached to that. So they were very specific. I wanted to get the information out. Sorry, it wasn't as specific as some of you are seeking. That'll be posted when they post it on the website at CDE. It was going through that process, but we've had a lot of questions about whether people's grants have been approved. So you are correct, the email was very general, just saying that you were approved. So you were approved for whatever you applied for. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, so yeah, we still have a bunch of time. Jay had to hop off onto another call, but if you do have specific state level questions about WIOA 2, about CAEP, about the budget, anything like that, about what's coming up, we are, as you know, we're planning to do the summit virtually. I think it's the 3rd week of October. It'll be we're thinking about 4 days, maybe a 9 to 2 schedule. We won't schedule as many sessions, so you'll have a chance to attend a lot more than you usually do in a in-person conference. So we'll be sending more information about that using, I guess we would use the same call for proposals if you already submitted something. I don't know how that would work, but I'm sure we'll let you know If you've already submitted something for the in-person summit, we'll check in probably to see if you want to do it for the virtual summit. So, and we are still planning for the directors event virtually on August 5th. So mark that on your calendars. So
October 5th.
I'm sorry. Thanks, Carolyn. Let me just get these dates down. October 5th is that a Monday? Yeah, October 5th, a Monday, and then October 19th through the 22nd, that's a Monday through Thursday.
Neil, this is Renee.
Yes.
We actually moved the summit dates to the 26th through the 29th.
Oh, okay.
We moved them back 1 week, but the October 5th is correct for the director's event.
Okay. So we'll have to, I know there's an ACE event that's usually the first week of November. We'll have to let them know so they, as far as any overlap. I don't know if there's anything else that week, but nice to get that update. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay, so Martha, that's October 5th, a Monday. And then Diana says, happy birthday to Carolyn again. I think Carolyn's birthday is in September, right?
No, it's October 29th. This will be the second year that it's on my birthday.
Oh, jeez. That's what Diana was saying.
We'll have a big, big virtual cake.
Oh, okay. So maybe we won't schedule you for any virtual presenting on your birthday, right?
Oh, it's quite all right, Neil. I usually work my birthday, not to worry.
And no Disney. Well, Emma, I don't know who was lucky enough to go to Disneyland last year, but we certainly weren't. But I'm sure some of you took advantage of the, what was it, the half-day discount on the first day. But you can always go to virtual Disney, right? So anyway, all right. So any other questions? Kind of running out of material here. A lot of wait and see stuff. We've kind of beat the reporting and the, got the update from Jay. Every week we can give you an update on what's happening, but I think we're doing pretty well. As far as the increase, I don't know if that's due to people just being more vigilant about reporting their data, getting it in time, but to see a continued, after 2 months of online learning, to see a 4.4% increase, I mean, that's got to count for something. And so our numbers are getting close to, what we normally see at the end of the year for participants. So that's encouraging as well. So we'll see what happens come August 1st, how our numbers look, and then we'll look to see when we reopen or have the fall schedule, how we respond to that in an online environment, students coming back, new students signing up and stuff like that. I guess that'll be the proof in the pudding there. So
Neil, we're going to do another survey out to everyone to check, to kind of get a sense of what that's going to look like in the fall, so that we all know sort of what direction it's going.
Right. Okay, that would be good. Yeah, because we were surprised with the numbers for the spring. We thought, what we were hearing, we were going to see a 50% drop off. We didn't see the drop off yet. So it'll be interesting to see, what happens in the fall. So a survey would be great.
Yep.
Okay, and then Holly put in there, we have the COVID-19 resource page on the Cal Adult Ed website. We also have the Google Group homepage. You can join the discussion there. Haven had a question. Do you think we are reaching a demographic we haven't been serving prior, i.e. those that cannot come to the site? That's a good question, because when all this stuff was going on, I started looking at the data and I was saying, do we have groups that aren't, progressing as fast as other groups? are there certain groups that aren't successful as other groups? And I was looking at ABE, I was looking at ASE, I was looking at CTE, and then I was looking at statewide demographic data for like no high school diploma, unemployment, those kind of things. And so far, I haven't seen anything unusual, but that's at the state level. That could vary within your region. So, you know, Launchboard has those tabs where you can drill down by program area, by ethnic group. So you can check that out. You can look at, you know, student progress. You can look at student success through, you know, diplomas and degrees and certificates, things like that. So I don't know, it'd be interesting. That's a good question. Let's see if we have any responses, or I could put that in the Google group for next week. Let me copy and paste that out. Let's see if anybody else has maybe a response to that. Have you been looking at your demographics? Are you serving a group or a demographic that you hadn't been serving prior to this? You know, is the online allowing you to serve certain students that maybe you weren't seeing? So let's see what kind of the response is. Jody said, do we have a comparison of what increased enrollment was during the same time? That's what I asked Costas. So I know our end of the year last year for participants was like a little over 600,000 for 12 hours or more. And I think now we're even in the third quarter, and I'm not the Costas expert and I might be misrepresenting this, and Jay has left the webinar, but we're at like 541,000 in current unduplicated enrollment. So, and that's only in Q3. So we're getting close to that 600,000 mark that we had last year for 12 hours or more of instruction. So, but I don't know where we were at last year in Q3 at this time and what that 12-hour mark was. So Jody, I did have the same thought, and I haven't heard back from Costas, but we could follow up on that. Good question. So Mitch says, when will a call for proposals for the summit be sent out? Let me just check with Holly or Renee if have you even thought about a process for proposals for the summit, virtual summit?
Neil, this is Renee. Yes, we have been talking about it and we'd like to get it out as soon as possible, but I'm thinking realistically, when we make the changes that we need to make to the site to be able to get the call for proposal request out, it will probably be 3 to 4 weeks from now. So I'm thinking mid-July, mid to maybe third week in July.
Okay, thank you. And Burr says ESL is where the biggest digital divide is. So Burr, would we expect to see maybe in the fall a big drop off from those students or students registering in that group? I would assume that would be the hypothesis there. Let's see. So Diana says, are you saying the increase was in new enrollment? So it's just enrollments, Diana. I don't think Costas was able to break it out between new and existing. So that remains to be seen. We'll see what the end of the year data, and that's why the survey would be important, you know, because you hear from the field one thing and then the data is showing something else. So the data is probably not capturing those new enrollments or the potential for a decline in new enrollments. So that's what we want to be prepared for in the fall. So Ava said we did online CTE and 18 students enrolled because they could attend the class via recording, some Zoom as well at the time work anytime they wish. I think we need to rethink keeping some of these online offerings after we're back from face-to-face. Yeah, I think once the barn door is open, I don't think we're going to be able to close it. So it'll be good to continue to evolve these processes and perfect them and try new things, see what works, see what makes it easier on students, because we'll definitely support that. And then Kristen said, would it be possible or helpful to have a statewide standardized student survey that programs could administer and roll up the data to the state related to digital learning barriers? Many programs did their own, but it might be helpful to have one survey. I don't know if Carolyn's still on the line. I don't know, have we thought about, I mean, how difficult, Carolyn, you think it would be to have some kind of standardized student survey around things that we want to learn about in the online environment? Is that even possible?
Read that question again, Neil.
So Kristen said, would it be possible or helpful to have a statewide standardized student survey that programs could administer and roll up the data to the state related to digital learning, barriers, etc.? Many programs do their own, but it might be helpful to have one survey. So
That's a good idea. We'll have to think about that.
yeah.
Let me look for that question so I can copy it down.
Okay. So I don't know, have we do we normally reach out to students at the state level? We don't normally, do we?
No, we don't, but I think what she's asked, well, I'm hoping what she's asking is that it's just standardized questions. We wouldn't send it out to all the students. That would be more labor intensive.
Yeah.
I just was thinking like the employment survey that we do, the really brief one, programs would administer it to their students, but it would be the same questions across the state, and we could roll up the data and have it standardized to kind of inform digital learning programming.
About digital, so it'd be focused on digital learning.
Yeah.
All right, Kristen, the chat keeps jumping. Can you just send that to me in an email?
Yes.
Thanks. And then we'll talk about it, and we'll look at what that could look like.
Thank you.
Okay, and then regarding the ESL drop-off, Bruce says he thinks so, but I appreciate hearing of increases in other areas. And then Nancy said, if we end up with students in the classroom, enrollment will be down due to the number of students in the room as a social distancing. Karen said, what about updating the WIOA tech survey and possibly using that? So there's another suggestion, Carolyn, that we use an existing tech survey to ask some kind of digital online learning questions or tweak the existing questions.
So I know that Renee could probably chime in on this if she is there, but I know that we have Netta and Penny are looking at that survey so that we can, one, reduce some of the questions. We're really trying to, you've heard me talking about this for a while, to reduce those deliverables that you all have. Well, this is the year that it's happening because it's a new grant cycle. And so you won't have a PD plan to do in the fall. You won't have a technology distance learning plan to do in the late winter, in the winter. It's all going to be rolled into a continuous improvement plan that will come out in February or March, will be due in May. And that's what will drive then your next year when you're looking at how are you going to budget for professional development? How are you going to leverage different funding streams, right? To do all of those things that you do at your schools. And how are you going to budget for professional development when it relates to distance learning and the use of technology? So really trying to streamline all of that, and it's been working with the state leadership projects. And Jay's not on the call, but it's been hard because you have to remember these state leadership projects have had these deliverables for a long time. And I've been asking them to just sort of turn it upside down and do something that's really going to be beneficial for all of you in the field, so that what you have is a document that you can do some checkpoints during the year with your staff to say, so how are we progressing on this goal? And it's going to be setting up some SMART goals, 1 to 3 SMART goals, and then having strategies for those goals. So, and using data, and that data is going to be pieces from the implementation survey. It'll be pieces from part of that technology distance learning, that survey, and we're going to put some teacher professional development and administrator professional development questions in there that were part of those surveys that your teachers would do through CalPro. It was voluntary. So you're going to do some type of a survey assessment during this time period so that you can then evaluate what you need to move forward. And you're also going to look at your CASAS data. And so everything's going to be really data driven. So I'm looking forward to it. It's been hard. It's been a year of working with the state leadership projects to kind of pivot and to think differently, because they work so well together, but yet they have their own silos that they are most comfortable in. And what I've asked them to do is sort of leave that comfort zone and to do something different. And we'll be there. We will be there. And the other piece that you might be happy to know is that it'll be all done online through the OTAN site. So.
Great. Thanks, Carolyn. Kelly, I wanted to ask you a question. So Kelly said, I think so, but will everyone be willing to adapt, or at least a database of examples of technology access in digital learning? I think that North Orange did a good one, and we did one as well. Kelly, do you have a chance to explain what that list of examples, was it just a spreadsheet of examples of access and digital learning that you're doing? What does that look like? I don't know if you have a chance to explain, so I'm not visualizing that right now.
I mean, I don't know how we would do it, but just kind of like a library of examples, because, you know, I would go and do, when we developed our survey, I would go and look at what other people had done that I'd heard for surveys. And we were doing it primarily to focus on CARES funding. But I think we missed some questions that we should have asked, because one of the things I'm noticing is that some of our students are still using their phones to access technology. And if you don't ask that, anyways, there's some specific questions, but I think if there's like a database or a library of different surveys that have proven to be workable for students, maybe we share that, because I don't know if you're going to be able to get like people's research departments or their programs to adopt a state standard survey.
Right. And I think, I don't know, Renee, I don't know if OTAN has something like that. I mean, OTAN's doing all these webinars and resources. I'm pretty sure they have a place you can go to look at maybe what the, access innovations are, and what people are using for digital learning. But I don't know if that's all in one handy dandy, lookup database or some kind of easy to use place to go. So I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
And it's because I used to do nonprofit work in a technology agency, is that it's about equipment access, Wi-Fi access, and then digital literacy. So there's kind of like 3 legs to the stool, and we can ask questions about, do they have access to the technology? But if they don't have good Wi-Fi, or they don't have the digital literacy, then it's still going to put them at an equity disadvantage. So.
Okay. Yeah, we'll follow up with OTAN, because those are all good questions. And I know OTAN covers all these issues. So I wonder, when they have these statewide webinars and they hear stuff, are they collecting that information? Because we did do a survey, but it wasn't specific to particular technology, but they're aware of the technology. So we'll follow up with them and see, unless Renee has something else to add? Because we don't have Penny on the line today, I don't think, or Netta.
Sorry, I didn't have my microphone there, but I'm happy to bring that back to our team. I don't know that they do have one document that would, you know, have all of that information on it. However, I do know that there's been a national level survey circulating with just maybe about 7 questions. Some of you are maybe familiar with it, asking about distance learning and access to internet, access to Wi-Fi, maybe how they're learning differently during COVID. What have they learned new? But so that might be something that we want to examine as we're building a statewide survey ourselves.
Yeah, I think OTAN would know what's working and what's not, right?
Mhm.
They're pretty good at.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
they're going to be having some upcoming, I guess, focus groups that that are going to be inviting the field to share what they've been doing, what's been working, what are the continuing challenges, how can we as OTAN support them further as they look at starting up programs for the fall. So that look for those to be advertised soon for folks to participate in as well.
Right. You know, it's always been, as far as I've known adult ed, you know, CASAS has always been in the forefront. And now OTAN has taken a big step forward to the adult table, so to speak, because everybody wants to know about the online and digital and Wi-Fi and technology. So OTAN, whether you like it or not, you are in the spotlight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe we had 14,000 teachers trained from mid-March to last week.
Wow.
14,000 that have participated in trainings during this
Amazing.
period. So definitely reaching out to the field.
Yeah. Okay, and then some other comments Will said on the survey. Maybe we have some state-specific questions that can be included with our own site questions that we offer. Diana says, get student survey input from those that did one. It is typical for WASC, for agencies to do a survey. Then Kelly said the need for text surveys because students don't have access to email. Sue said it would be very hard to reach all students with the survey because of the equity and distance learning access. Jody likes the idea of some kind of standardized survey to inform barriers and challenges. And Connie says they do a student survey for their tech plan. They could look at those. And then Kristen says maybe a phone. You could do a questionnaire over the phone. Some people like that. I think Todd from Chafee Adult did a student survey. So it'd be interesting, Todd, to find out what kind of innovations you did, because you did get a lot of response back, but you know, I don't know what the problems were, how you resolved them, but I think you did get quite a large fair response rate on your student survey that you did. And let's see, I think Kelly had a question. Will we still need to do an IELCE/IET plan? I think that's a Carolyn question. I don't know if she had a chance to answer that.
No, that will also be folded in to this continuous improvement plan.
Okay, so that's good news, right? One less plan to do.
I think I saw Kelly give a thumbs up.
Okay. All right, and Connie says one problem I see is that we will only be able to reach people who have and use technology. For people without technology will not be able to answer the question. That's what Sue Gilmore was saying as well. Sean says, what about teachers who are in high risk for COVID-19? Is there guidance for teachers who are 50 plus? Edweek is reporting that as many as 1 in 3 teachers are at a higher risk of severe illness from COVID-19. That's an accurate statement. So that's another thing we'll have to deal with. I know Sean posted some good information in the Google group on this. So take a look at that, but just sharing his concern about as we, and because that was Kelly's question that we posted in the Google group, or how are people prepared to go back in the fall? And there is some concern, are we really prepared to go back in the fall? Have we done what we needed to do? Are we protecting, you know, our teachers from exposure? Those kind of things. And then Diana said Todd shared about parent involvement. That's good news. All right, we've got a few more minutes. I don't know if I captured all the stuff people were posting. And there is a data driving webinar on June 23rd that Holly just posted, as well as the data and accountability webinar in August 5th, I believe. So, you know, if you have nothing to do this summer, you can get excited about our webinars. You know, if you're staying home and you're tired of watching Netflix, we've got some great webinars coming up. Connie said surveys are great, but they do cost time and money. Where will that come from? Good question. Or good response. I don't know. So with that, let's see. I'll go around the room. Holly and Renee, anything we missed that you want to remind people about?
I was just going to remind everyone about the upcoming webinars that we have going. I posted all the links in the chat box. The dates should all be there, but you can always go to register.caladulted.org. I will put that in the chat box as well, and register for all of the events. They all do start at 1 o'clock. I think that's all I needed. Renee, do you have anything you would like to update? We can't hear you again.
Yeah. Oh, I need to train myself. I was looking for what I was referencing as far as the focus group input from the field. So on Monday, the 15th, OTAN is doing a field support call, and they're looking for adult educators and administrators to provide some feedback about how online learning went this past spring and kind of what's being planned for the fall. They also have a survey. So I can work with Holly to make sure those links are in the chat, but I also, maybe we can post that to, I'll work with Holly to figure out the best place to post that information, but that is on
send
the
an
15th
email
from 1 to 2:30.
Okay, I can send a follow-up email out to everyone who attended today with any additional links or resources that we referenced today.
That's
Right.
perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Carolyn, anything, things that, just reminders or any last words?
Everyone have a good weekend.
All right.
You too.
All right, with that, thank you, Holly. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Renee. And thank you, everyone, for being on the call today, as well as Jay Wright, who had to leave early. So we'll, next week, instead of the CAEP office hours, we'll be having the annual planning webinar. So sign up for that. And we look forward, if we get any more additional information on these topics, that we will share them one way or another. So have a great weekend and look forward to reconnecting next week.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Neil.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.